Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with a video of popular books I've DNF'd. I got this idea from Books Like Whoa. She recently posted this video and I thought it was a great idea because I have not DNF'd a lot of books in my time on BookTube in my reading career, because I am just the kind of person who, if I start it, I have to finish it or else I can't count it as my reading goal, and I feel like I've already read half of it and it's a waste if I don't finish it. And so I know that's not a good trait to have, because that means I get angry when I'm reading it, or I feel slumpy and I don't want to read it. And I have only a list of 6 books, so I rarely DNF books, and one of these is because of an audiobook. Another one is because it really was out of my comfort zone anyways, and I was like, no. So these all are books that I have not finished and I don't plan on finishing. One of them I've actually made a video about, but don't take it personally if you love this book. For me, something was wrong with it that I couldn't enjoy it. So these aren't bad books. Sometimes the writing doesn't really gel with me. So I will go ahead and get to the 6 books I've DNF'd that are over the past, I think, 2 years. These are really the only ones that I really DNF'd that I can remember. So I will get to them. The first one, it was for the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2020, and that is One to Watch. There are a lot of conflicting feelings over this book, and I fell in the camp of people who really did not like it. And so this was on the Goodreads Choice Awards for romance, and to me, as a romance reader, I got halfway through this book and I couldn't even tell you who the love interest was. And I know she's on a dating show, and someone in that video on the comments was like, well, she's on a dating show, obviously it's a romance. And I was like, but it's not focusing on the romance. I can't even tell you who the romance is with, and I'm halfway through this book. And so it was a lot more about her journey of herself and loving herself, and this one was promoted as like a self-love plus size representation that was awesome, but she really didn't love her body. She loved it, but she wasn't comfortable with it. And I know people appreciated this kind of realistic representation for some people, where you don't want to go on live TV in a bikini and you are self-conscious about your body, but I feel like this was promoted in a way that didn't align with how it actually was. And so I will link down below Bethany's review from Beautifully Bookish Bethany. She put it into words so much better than I ever could of what my issues were with this book. She just constantly, the main character, didn't want to show her body and wasn't proud of it. This book was advertised as, our heroine says, like, calls out this Bachelor TV show saying, you need normal people on there, you need women who have curves on there. And so they ask her and she says yes, but it's not like celebrating the fact that she's on there. She's so self-conscious the whole time, and I didn't like any of the guys, and I think only one of the guys was not ripped and gorgeous, which that made me mad about the double standard. Like, okay, you're saying we need regular women on the show, what about regular guys? Like, every guy on The Bachelor has a 6-pack abs and is like ripped, and I'm like, why can't we have just your average Joe on this show? So I didn't really like that double standard, and I feel like the guy was kind of stereotypical. Like, they would just talk about food together, and she would say things like she has to say she likes to shop organic even though she doesn't, and it wasn't for me. I was annoyed that the representation wasn't what we were told and the romance didn't develop. I know people love this book, they love the representation in here, but for me it wasn't what I was marketed, so I didn't love it. Like I said, check out Bethany's review to put it into words better. The next one is a popular book in the romance community, and that is Untouchable by Sam Mariano. This one actually has a lot of people who are not okay with it, and I fall in the camp of I couldn't even get past the first 50 pages because literally the first 50 pages is our hero sexually assaulting our heroine, and that is the first 50 pages. It is a huge, long, drawn-out scene, and then she doesn't want to go to school the next day, so he shows up at her house and acts like he thinks she's sick and like charms her mom and forces his way basically into her house by charming her mom, and it just made me angry. I cannot stand behind a hero who assaults our heroine. Absolutely no way. I've read dark romances where the heroine is assaulted and that's part of the story, but not by the hero. I can never root for a hero who would violate and demean our heroine in that way, and I just, that's where I draw my line with dark romance, and I talked about that whenever I read old school historical romances. I know it's in there a lot, and I just cannot get behind a man who does that, and that was 50 pages of this book, and this was one of the first books that I read that had that trope. And I know people are like, oh, it's Sam Mariano's Untouchable, it's super dark, make sure you're ready. That's not dark to me, that's just abuse to me. So I did not like this. That is my line with dark romance. I'm fine like stuff happening like that when the heroine, it's supposed to be like a villain or like that's just part of her past. I'm not okay with it being the hero at all. So while I can read dark romance and I'm fine reading the content of dark romance, when it comes to being between the hero and the heroine, not okay for me. Consent is important. Implied consent is important, but like it was a hardcore no and he was, yes, it's happening, and I'm just like, no thank you. The next one, speaking of dark, like I just said I'm fine with dark romance, but this one was a little bit too much for me because of the content, and it was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and this one, I know people absolutely love this, and I don't remember how far I got into this. I think I got about 100 pages, and I was just not feeling the story. I was kind of confused by what was going on, and I couldn't really follow along that well of like what the point of the book was. And we got a scene between our heroine and a ghost in a bathroom, and I was shocked. I hadn't heard that there were any trigger warnings for this book, and I don't like things with little kids happening. And on page, like I've read plenty of like books where it talks about like previous assaults when they were children, but when it's actually explicitly on page, I'm just like, is there really a reason you need to put this on page for us to read? It was just shocking to me, very jarring, and I already wasn't enjoying the plot itself. I was very confused by what was happening, and I didn't love what was happening because I didn't know like, okay, what is the point of everything that's happening? I didn't read the synopsis before going in. I usually don't read the synopsis of books. Maybe I should have for this one. I usually don't. I like just going in not knowing anything except for what people have talked about to me. So this one, I wasn't a fan, and I don't normally read dark academia anyways. It's really out of my comfort zone. So when this was way out of my comfort zone. So this was definitely a me thing. I'm not saying this is a bad book. I personally just didn't gel with this book. I know people absolutely love it. It's like their top fave of all time. Not for me. Maybe it got better, but it just took too long to get there, so I stopped reading. The next one I DNF'd because of the audiobook, and also because of the confusing characters, and that was The Hellion by Christy Caldwell. This one's not like super popular, but it was one I was super hyped to read because I've seen a lot of people talk about it in the romance community, and it is a historical romance, and our heroine they're like rivaling families, and then I think they had to like team up for something, and I was confused. I think I made it like 2 hours into the audiobook, and there were a million characters, and they already had a history together. They already hated each other, and apparently this is book 1 in the series, but it's technically a spin-off of another series, which doesn't say anywhere on Goodreads about this. And so I was like, I have no idea what's happening. And then I really didn't like the narrator's voice, and it was really hard for me to focus with that narrator's voice. Typically I'm fine when it comes to narrators. It's really hard for me not to like a narrator. I'll have to slow it down sometimes. I do, if you can tell I talk fast. I listen to audiobooks on 3 times speed, but depending on the narrator, if they have an accent like a lot of historicals do, I'll slow them down. I slowed this way down, and I still was like, I hate this narrator so much, and so I put it down. On top of the fact that I had no idea who any of these characters were and where the story was going. So I just decided to DNF this. I might pick up her other series first, whatever this was a spin-off of, see if I like that, and then if I finish that series, I definitely would end up picking this up again. But as the first in a series, it was just too complicated to figure out because we didn't get a lot of background about who anybody was, and there were a lot of characters in here. So this one definitely should have been marketed as a spin-off, and I cannot read on its own. The one I have an entire video about is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I read this because I think it was a Pick What I Read Next last year or the year before, and this was definitely something that I thought I had the wrong expectations going in. I was told it was going to be amazing paranormal romance, and the romance was non-existent from what I'd read. I think I'd read half the book. It's a really long book, and there was no romance, and the plot was very slow. There's this like book that people are looking for, and she ends up finding it, and then people are trying to find her, and I'm pretty sure the love interest is a vampire and she's a witch, and we were still like on this book plot line, and we were like halfway through this book, and the guy was kind of there, but I didn't feel like any kind of romantic connection between them. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a super slow burn romance, and it was just too slow burn for me. I don't have the patience for that. I like a good slow burn, but I need a lot of tension and angst in it, and there was not a lot in this one, and so it just wasn't for me. I was expecting a much bigger romance, and that was my fault. I shouldn't have, because people just rave about the romance in here, and I guess it might be developing later on in the book or later on in the series, but for the plot itself, nothing was really happening and there was no romance, so I put it down. I couldn't slog through the entire rest of that book because it was so long and I was feeling slumpy, so I put it down. And the last one is definitely because it's not my genre, and I wanted to read something else, and I was feeling slumpy and I was feeling bored, and that is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. This one I know, the show came out, it's literary fiction. I don't even remember what I read. I think I read like 30 pages of this book, and I was like, this is so slow. I don't really care about any of these characters. And so I didn't really feel any desire to keep on reading and go more into this. I know that the show was out and my friend Allie was doing a read along and I wanted to join in, but this was just, it's not my genre. And so I will say this might be a really great book. I know people absolutely love it, but if it's not my genre, I can't force myself to love it. I need romance, I need angst, I need a faster moving plot, and for this one, it was very character driven, and I'm not the biggest fan of character driven novels. I need a plot to move a book along, or else I have a really hard time enjoying it, unless I absolutely adore the characters because of the romance. The romance of a character driven novel can make me love it, but I really need a plot to like keep things moving and keep me interested. And in this one, there wasn't that much of a plot in the beginning, and I was just like, I don't feel like reading this. And I didn't really love any of the characters, and so I ended up putting it down and never picked it back up. I don't know if I ever will pick it back up. Like I said, it's not my genre, and I was just jumping on the bandwagon because everybody was talking about it because the show came out. So that felt like I was even more pressured to read it and like it, and I don't like reading under pressure and like feeling like I have to like something, so I ended up putting this down as well. And those are 6 books that I've DNF'd. Let me know if you like to DNF books. I know I should DNF more, especially when I end up rating them like 2 or 1 star. Like, I know I'm gonna hate it, but I keep on reading it anyway because it's the perfectionist in me. If I start something, I have to finish it. That's how I've always been. I hate quitting things because then I feel like a failure, and that's just my personality. So I have only DNF'd these 6 books in the past like 2 years. There might have been a few that I've started and haven't finished, but I like do definitely plan on coming back to them to finish. But these, I really don't think I want to finish them. Some of them I for sure am not, but some of them maybe sometime in the future. But those are my DNFs. Let me know in the comments the last book that you ended up DNFing and why, and what your thoughts on these books are. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.